I can't
Come into
believe
my
you're still
office.
so cheerful.
Come into
Well,
my
I
office.
can understand why you're cheerful. but okay. Europeans need to step up. So will that transition be managed in a way that European...
The daddy thing, I didn't call him daddy. What I said is that sometimes in Europe, I hear sometimes countries saying, hey Mark, will the US stay with us? And I said, that sounds a little bit like a small child asking his daddy, hey, are you still staying with the family? So in that sense, I use daddy, not that I was calling President Trump daddy.
Okay, so does this mean that, in a sense, the Europeans are growing up now? They will be less the children and the US less the daddy?
Yes, they already had grown up, but I think they realized because of Russia, because of this US demand, which is only fair to equalize the spending, that this had to be done and that today had to happen. And it creates a NATO which is so much stronger and more knitted together, the fabric of that organization so much stronger in the future.
For Ukraine, coming not just from other allies and full.
It will cost a lot, absolutely. But let's also face the facts that Europe, the European countries, are 10% of world economy and 50% of worldwide spending on pensions, social security, and healthcare. That's fine. I mean, I'm not arguing with that. But it means that there is a lot of money. My country is one of the richest countries on earth, this country, the Netherlands. And most European countries are in the top list of richest countries on earth. What we now have to do is to make sure that they move from 2, when it comes to the core defense spending, to 3.5%, where these countries spend 12-13% on health, 10% on pension systems, 10 to 15% on social security payments. This is doable.
But it's a lot. Very much.
Thank you very much.
Time, right?
Great.
Okay. Thanks very much, Secretary General.
Her Excellency. His Excellency, Mr. Kristen. His Excellency, Dr. Robert Golob. His Excellency, Mr. Edgars Rinkevich.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. We'll jump right in with a statement from the Secretary General, followed by your questions.
And together, allies have laid the foundations for a stronger, fairer, and more lethal NATO. NATO leaders agreed on the The Hague Defence Investment Plan. And this will fuel a quantum leap in our collective defence. They agreed to boost our defence industries, which will not only increase our security, but will also create jobs. And we have reaffirmed our unwavering support for Ukraine and ensure that our 1 billion people can continue to live in freedom and security. With this plan, allies have agreed to invest 5% of GDP in defence. This is a significant commitment in response to significant threats to our security. It includes at least 3.5% of GDP invested in core defence requirements, a benchmark that until today was set at 2%. A target that I'm pleased to say all allies will now meet this year or have already met. The 3.5% is to fund our militaries and the equipment they need, from our air defenses to ammunition, drones, tanks, troops, and more. In addition to the 3.5% for core defense, the plan includes 1.5% of GDP that will go towards investment that support our defense and security. President Trump has been clear. America is committed to NATO. He affirmed that again today in no uncertain terms. At the same time, he made clear that America expects European allies and Canada to contribute more. And that is exactly what we see them doing. European allies and Canada will do more of the heavy lifting, equalizing their spending and taking greater responsibility for our shared security. Of course, this is also an alliance that stands firmly by our neighbor and partner, Ukraine. My dear friend Volodymyr Zelensky is here in The Hague with us at the NATO summit along with his team. Our resounding message to him and the Ukrainian people is that Ukraine has our continued support. Of course, work does not stop here. This is day one. The resolve of allies is clear. We are in this together, committed to Article 5, and we are determined to stand firm. No one should doubt our capacity or determination should our security be challenged. This is the stronger, fairer and more lethal alliance that NATO leaders have begun to build.
Today you called him Daddy, and you sent a text message to him that was gushing with praise.
But I think he's a good friend, and when he is doing stuff which is forcing us to, for example, when it comes to making more investments, I mean, would you ever think that this would be the result of this summit if he would not have been re-elected president? Do you really think that 7 or 8 countries who said, yeah, somewhere in the 2030s we might meet the 2%, we've now all decided in the last 4 or 5 months to get to 2%? So doesn't he deserve some praise? And when it comes to Iran, the fact that he took this decisive action, very targeted, to make sure that Iran would not be able to get its hands on a nuclear capability, I think he deserves all the praise.
Saturday night. Do you have concerns about that and whether or not it poses a threat to NATO?
And I think what President Trump did here is take a very targeted, chirurgical operation to take out as much as possible Iran's capability to get to a nuclear weapon. And I commend him for that. And obviously it's now up to all the studies being done and all the details look into what exactly has been the effect of this. But I'm personally very optimistic that this has dealt a massive blow to Iran.
And second, if I may, is Spain now serious about the defense spending goal?
On the last question, I believe so. As you know, there is disagreement to disagree that they think they can reach the capability targets by 2.1%. NATO is saying it has to be 3.5, like for all the other allies. Not be naive about Russia. Of course, they are fighting this totally unprovoked